with Pearson being headquartered in London, it's created a great deal of content for a number of years. It's obviously looked at the world and where certain parts of content is needed in certain parts of the world. It's taken those learnings from different parts of the world, and it's with that global view, it's brought great content to a number of learners, to hundreds of thousands of learners over the years. In the new world, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get closer to the learner, so we're trying to put the learner at the center of whatever we do. In certain parts of the world, we've actually acquired businesses that we teach students direct to understand what the student needs are in order for us to craft a better product to deliver to those students across the businesses that we own and across the partners that we deliver those services to. If you think about the classroom environment today, it's a full value chain starting from where students are recruited all the way through to where they graduate, whether they graduate at matric, at high school level, or whether they graduate at a higher education level. It's a full value chain of services. In most classes, if a teacher is in front of the class, he or she is able to teach for probably about 50 to 60% of that class. It's very difficult to teach for every specific learner within the class. Now, the Pearson product, we've looked at that scenario. We've looked at a scenario where we want to make sure that every learner in the class gets a tailored experience. We've got a great deal of products that would understand where the learners are in a class at a particular point in time. And most of that's driven by data. The data then gets analyzed, it gets fed back to the teachers, to the educators, and they would understand where the kids are in class at all times, as opposed to then waiting for the year, and at the end of the year we have this massive assessment and it's a pass or a fail. We've got ongoing data to help the educator understand where the students are, and once they understand where the students are, they're then able to tailor a particular solution for that student and make sure that every student can and has the ability to pass at the end of the year. A part of our success has to do with the values that we live by. It is brave, imaginative and decent. We not only talk to the internal Pearson business in that manner, we also talk to our external stakeholders in the same fashion. It's also putting the learner at the center of whatever we do. We understand what the learner wants. We craft our product and our services in accordance with the learner needs. And the next iteration of taking that product to the digital world is to provide some tools to teachers that can take the service and enhance their offering to learners in the educational system. With Pearson wanting to be closer to the learner, we have acquired a business in South Africa. We have 13 campuses in South Africa where we provide students higher education tuition across those 13 campuses. We have just short of 15,000 students across those 13 campuses. And something that we've done this year that we think is groundbreaking is we've given every single student that started in the first year a tablet in his hand or her hand. It is preloaded with all of their content on there, so the textbooks that they used to come to class with or the massive libraries that there were is now all contained on one tablet. That gives the learners the ability to start accessing not just the information that was on the textbook, but they can do wider research on the internet, and they can then the teacher can use certain parts of the internet to help teach. Kids learn in a different manner than they did in the past. They use technology, they use the likes of Facebook, etc., in order to teach themselves. And it's quite funny because teachers often are scared of using technology because they say Google knows everything when it comes to teaching in a class. The second part, I think, of the success is we've provided through our two imprints, Maskey, Miller Longman and Heinemann, we've provided a great deal of textbooks very successfully to the K-12, to the school system in South Africa, and we continue to do so. We also, as part of CSI, we've identified 5 districts, 2 in KwaZulu-Natal, 2 in the Eastern Cape, and 1 in Mpumalanga. We've looked at schools that are really at the bottom of the pyramid, where teachers don't necessarily understand what they've got to do, and we've helped those teachers to understand the system, to understand how to manage, to understand how to improve the learner environment in order to get better results out of students. And very simple processes that we've put in place. We've helped these districts and schools, more than 1,700 of them. We've helped them improve the learners' lives in those particular schools. I think in the South African education sector, because we're going through, we've got a very active political landscape, and often what we do is we use education as political capital. And it's very easy to stand on the sideline and criticize the system, as opposed to getting involved in the system and helping the system, partnering with each other and partnering with government, and helping the system, help improving the system. We don't have to stand on the sidelines. We can get involved. We don't have to take the credit, therefore. We can live in the shadow of government, but improve the education system. I think it would be wonderful if there is an equal education system across the sectors. If you think about the education landscape in South Africa, you've got schools at the bottom of the pyramid and you've got schools at the top of the pyramid, and not everyone has got access to decent education. I think if we can create an environment using technology, enabling teachers, collecting data to make it a decent and an equal education system, I think we would be able to create an environment where we teach the youth of South Africa and Africa as a whole to run a bit better political landscape and a better economical landscape than we've done in the past. It's incredible to see that in Africa, probably more so than many other parts of the world, families understand the value of education. So there's an enormous resilience in families and in learners where they take money from many families, they put it together and they send 1 child or 2 children or educate multiple people in the family because they understand the value of education. It is not in many parts of the world that you see that. In other parts of the world, people fend for themselves, whereas families see that in South Africa and Africa. The other thing that, because we travel, as Pearson, we travel internationally, we see that there are parts of the South African education system repeated elsewhere in the world, which is wonderful to see. I think often we sit as South Africans and we think about, once the data comes out, we think about all of the bad things that we offer in South Africa. But there are many parts of the South African system that are exported to other parts of the world. That's incredible to see. And we as South Africans and as Africans should take pride in what we export to other parts of the world. We decided to partner with Africa Eduweek because we wanted to start talking about not just saying the words that we are improving people's lives, but really measuring the outcomes of that. So you identify a number of outcomes, you set metrics against those outcomes, you measure those outcomes from a baseline viewpoint and iterative measures thereafter to really make sure that the life or the outcome is improved. We also wanted to start business to think about how to collaborate within the education space. Think about public and private partnerships. Government's committed an enormous amount of capital to growing the FET sector in South Africa, and there's an opportunity not just there but across the education space for public-private partnerships to help the education system, and we want to make South Africa the showcase for Africa in doing so. At African Eduweek, our message this year is we want to help teachers, we want to enable teachers to teach in the classroom of the future. We want to make sure that teachers understand that their importance in the classroom will never be taken away, but they can use technology to teach to more kids in the class of today. I think if we as the corporate world start thinking about the importance of education in Africa, in South Africa, we need to get closer to understanding how to partner with government in order to make the education system better. The whole point of that is we've got an incredible amount of young people sitting in Africa, sitting in South Africa today, that we can teach, that we can train to do things better, wiser, faster than we've ever done it before. And if we're able to do that, if we're able to create the future leaders for Africa as a continent, it will create an immense opportunity for Africa as a continent. It'll become the net exporter of products and services as opposed to net importer. So the collaboration of companies, of the corporate world is incredibly important, and we want to lead that. We want to be the leader of the pack, or a leader in the pack, and that's why we are partnering with African Eduweek.